All right, here we are, 49ers Memorial Day weekend update and discussion. And we have to frame this around a congratulations to the Czech Republic. Those of you who follow know that I have a dual citizenship of the U.S. and the Czech Republic. They have won the World Ice Hockey Championship, and they won it on their home ice. So it'd be like the 49ers winning the Super Bowl in a couple years when it's at Levi's Stadium and hosting the Super Bowl there and then winning it there. The World Hockey Championships were here in Prague. They weren't actually on the square. They were east of here at the arena. But the Czech Republic beat Switzerland 2-0. It was a hell of a game, wrapped up about an hour ago. And this is the first time that they have won on their home ice since 1985. Switzerland upset Canada. The Czech Republic beat the United States on the way. It was a world championship moment. It was awesome just to see. This is Old Town Square. This is everybody packed into the square watching the game because they couldn't get into the arena. And my question is, are the 49ers next? One of the teams that I follow, I don't cover the Czech hockey team, but one of the teams that I follow has won a world championship. And now we wonder, is the team that I cover, the 49ers, are they going to win a Super Bowl? And so much of the 49ers' ability to potentially win a Super Bowl will be how well do they block up front? How well do they protect Brock Purdy? What have they done to improve their offensive line? Will those efforts pay off in this 2024 season? But before we get into that big discussion, a couple of the reactions. This was really cool. This is on YouTube. This is in a smaller Czech city in the southern part of the country. They're going crazy here after one of the goals. We don't have town squares that are that nice in the US, but just between that and obviously this, which I showed you earlier, just imagine how cool it'd be in the US if our cities were built like Call of Duty maps, COD maps, right? And then you had thousands of people watching on TV. Unfortunately, San Francisco's got a little bit of this with how the Giants used to do it when they were winning their World Series. They would set up a big screen at a City Hall at Civic Center, and I was there one time. I think it was for the one where they beat the Tigers, the Middle World Series 2012, and people just started spraying champagne all over the place, and then the party spilled over to the whole city. So I guess San Francisco's a little bit better equipped to win a championship and have people out in the streets, celebrating than a lot of cities in the US, which are a little too car centric, where, you're not going to just be celebrating. It's a bit of a buzzkill if you're in the middle of a Walmart parking lot instead of having this as your backdrop. But this is what it looked like in Prague when they won the world championship. So are the 49ers next? Because it's been a long time coming for the 49ers football wise, obviously, since 1994. That season, 95 was when they won the championship. They've gotten close a few times now. The closest that they've gotten was either in this past year, right, when they're in the Super Bowl and they lost in overtime. But I think they were also very close in the 2019 season, very close in the 2012 season when they lost to the Ravens. It's about kicking the door down, getting just a little bit further. It's not like the Chiefs are worlds ahead of the 49ers. In fact, one could argue that the 49ers had a better team than Kansas City this past year, but it just didn't work out for them in the final game in the Super Bowl. And unfortunately in the NFL, you don't have a best of 7 series. It's not like you can play a team 7 times, lose a couple, lose up to 3 times, but still squeak away with the win by winning the remaining games. You have a 1-game opportunity every single time that you go out there in the postseason. And with that 1-game opportunity comes a whole lot of pressure. So if the 49ers are able to win this Super Bowl next, first off, they have to put themselves into regular season position, right? The regular season has to be used to gain that kind of position for the postseason. So you have to use the regular season to position yourself to win a championship, and that means maximizing the odds. The 49ers did that last year by attaining the number 1 seed. I think they entered the postseason with as good of a chance as possible. That being said, they played a red-hot Packers team in that first round, so maybe that wasn't ideal for the 49ers, but they didn't have much control over that. They attained what they could with the regular season. They did beat that red-hot Packers team by the skin of their teeth in the divisional round, and then the Lions also were playing really good football, and they were looking good against the 49ers for 30-plus minutes, but San Francisco was able to come out on top against the Detroit Lions by coming back from that 17-point deficit. So the 49ers set themselves up really well. They went into the Super Bowl with a couple weeks of rest, but so did Kansas City. I know that, there were complaints about the field heading into the Super Bowl. Then Dre Greenlaw did tear his Achilles in the first half of that game. San Francisco had a lead. San Francisco squandered the lead. Kansas City won in overtime. We all know how that went. So the 49ers are going to want to reverse course over 2 losses against Kansas City. And I think in both losses against the Chiefs, oh boy, we got another really good picture here, by the way. I'm just going to be sharing these pictures because this is the news of the day. This was really cool. The game happened in the evening in Prague. This is looking the other way on Old Town Square. So you've got one angle here, and then this is from the other side, one angle there. This is before the game was even close to being finished because it finished in darkness. So they're all watching on that screen right there. I think we're going to need a bigger screen for all these people. Jeez. And they're partying now. That party's going to go far into night. So will one of these happen in San Francisco? That's what we need to know, because the 49ers are coming up with their next 2024 season in less than 4 months is when it kicks off. Anyway, trying to reverse the curse against the Chiefs. I think that when you looked at that game against Kansas City and the 2019 game, the 49ers interior offensive line got beaten twice, especially the interior. I know that right tackle hasn't been great for the 49ers, but ultimately interior pressure, mainly the pressure led up by the right guard position, has been the most damaging pressure that the 49ers have taken over the course of the 2 Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs. Mike Person was playing right guard in 2019, and then it was a combination of John Feliciano and Spencer Burford this past season, the 2023 season against Kansas City. Chris Jones is obviously rushing against the interior both times. Once John Feliciano got hurt, it was all Spencer Burford for the 49ers against Kansas City, and that was a problem because they actually, it wasn't a clean benching of Spencer Burford because he still played a little bit even after John Feliciano took his starting job, but it was obvious that the 49ers were looking to improve the production that they were getting from that right guard position. It wasn't good enough in terms of pass protection from Spencer Burford earlier in the season, but they had to fully rely on him down the stretch of that game, and they obviously did not see the offensive line hold up as well as it needed to win the Super Bowl. So when we look at the work that the 49ers have done on the roster this offseason, they've obviously focused some of their attention on improving that offensive line. And I think it's notable that they have looked specifically at the interior offensive line. Green highlights here are rookies. The top draft pick for the front was Dominic Purdy, and I think that he can immediately threaten to take one of those starting positions. Now, Feliciano is back for one more year. Feliciano was actually an above-average guard last year for the 49ers. We're talking about comparing him to other guards around the NFL. So Feliciano gave them an instant, significant upgrade over Spencer Burford, and they re-signed him to a one-year deal. If you can get the kind of play that the 49ers got from John Feliciano last year in 2024, your right guard position is above average. You've immediately improved the right guard position. So Dominic Purdy, the rookie, coming in, trying to knock on the door, start sooner rather than later. I don't know if it's going to happen his rookie year, but I think he could push somebody like Aaron Banks, maybe even more realistically than he can push somebody like John Feliciano, who announced when he signed with the 49ers that this might be his last ride. So maybe we'll see John Feliciano head off into the sunset trying to grab a Super Bowl. Purdy, I think, is in a lot better condition than Aaron Banks was coming out of Notre Dame in 2021. Banks needed a whole year to rework his body and then slide into that left guard role. That was after Laken Tomlinson left the Jets. Dominic Puni, I think, Banks played 5 snaps in that 2021 season. Those were in garbage time against Jacksonville. I think that Dominic Puni is more ready than Aaron Banks was in 2021. Just looking at his body, looking at the fact that he's carrying his weight extremely well. He didn't give up a single sack at Kansas over 2 years there. The last sack he gave up was several seasons ago, and that was when he was playing lower level football. So I think so much about what Dominic Puni brings to the table. He's got a ready-made body for the NFL level. Of course, he needs to get a little bit stronger. Of course, he needs to get a little bit quicker. But that's what NFL weight rooms are for. That's what NFL strength and conditioning programs are for. I just think that the 49ers were looking for ready-made players in this draft because they're so damn close to kicking down the door and winning the Super Bowl. They did not want projects on this team. Somebody like Ricky Pearsall, very polished receiver, I think can potentially contribute right away. I don't think he's going to be the player that he can become right away. I don't think that he'll be at his ceiling yet, but I think he's a player that can deliver right away. Dominic Puni, I think he's a player that can at least deliver as a 6th man along the offensive line right away. And the reason I say 6th man, not starting left guard, is because, Aaron Banks is probably going to hold on to that position to begin the season. But Puni has played tackle. He played some center at the Senior Bowl, so he could fill in at that center position. And you know what? There's a non-zero chance with Jake Brendel out over the course of these OTAs as he deals with an injury. There's a non-zero chance that John Feliciano can end up playing that center position for the 49ers to begin the season, or at least at some point in the season. Feliciano has starting center experience. It was a couple years ago with the New York Giants. Jake Brendel currently has some knee tendonitis, is going to be out of OTAs because of it. Do not be shocked if John Feliciano plays center, at least for a stretch of the season for the 49ers in 2024. And if Feliciano does move over into the center position, boom, all of a sudden Dominic Puni is only competing with Spencer Burford for the starting right guard spot. And Burford has not been good. So if Puni competes with Burford, Puni might have a chance to grab a job from the very start for the 49ers. I don't think it's the likeliest outcome, but I think that it is a potential outcome here that we have to keep an eye on. The reason I say this is a complex balance of improving the 49ers offensive line is because you have to look at this in terms of the guards, and you have to look at this in terms of the tackles, and there's going to be some crossover. And then there's going to be areas where you are going to be tempted to cross this over and say that a guard can play tackle or a tackle should be playing inside at guard. But you probably shouldn't do that because that's not the way that the 49ers are thinking about this. One such example is, the rumor that Colton McKivitz is going to move inside and play right guard. And the 49ers started McKivitz at guard for a couple of games in 2020. One of them was against the Dallas Cowboys. That was a very lean year injury-wise for the 49ers. I don't think he looked good inside at all. I do think that Colton McKivitz improved over the course of the 2023 season at right tackle. And that absolutely is something to keep in mind. Talking to people around the 49ers, they do believe that Colton McKivitz in his second full year starting can give the type of protection on the right side that a very mobile quarterback like Brock Purdy needs. And that is, he needs less protection than your typical statue. Brock Purdy can absolutely move. The most damaging pressure to any quarterback is right up the middle because it's the hardest to get away from. It's on you the quickest. The second most damaging pressure is pressure coming from the blind side, which Trent Williams is holding down at left tackle for the 49ers. And then there's that right tackle pressure that we've seen Brock Purdy sidestep so many times. He was getting better rolling to his left last season. That's the pressure that Colton McKivitz is in charge of stopping. So that right tackle position has been problematic for the 49ers, but it hasn't been as problematic as right guard. And I think they honestly believe that Colton McKivitz can give them better pass protection than he did in his first full season starting. Now, over the course of 2023, he did get better within the season. It started out miserably against the Pittsburgh Steelers. TJ Watt had 3 sacks against him. So there was an upward trajectory last year, and now they hope that the time to just get away from the game, really figure out how that first season starting went, they really, the 49ers really hope that can help Colton McKivitz turn into at least a B-list player. He was undoubtedly was one of the weak links of the offensive line last year. The weak link was right guard, though, and the 49ers were able to fix that when John Feliciano entered the lineup. The second weak link at right tackle, that was Colton McKivitz, and I don't think that Jake Brendel had a good season either. But the price, especially of exterior linemen, was so high, the 49ers weren't able to get a clear-cut upgrade over Colton McKivitz at the spot that they were drafting. So the most efficient play is to try to see if Colton McKivitz can respond to some more time in the system while you invest your resources in versatile linemen, but versatile linemen that you can begin by playing on the inside, because that's where you had your most acute issues. And that's why Dominic Purdy starts as an interior lineman, but even though he might begin his career on that trajectory, he played tackle at Kansas. He played some center in a Senior Bowl. That's why Jarrett Kingston, he's talking about himself as an interior lineman, but he's got experience at lower levels playing tackle, and he actually was at right tackle during the 49ers OTA practice this week. That's why Drake Nugent and Bryson Mays, the other two players the 49ers brought in, are centers. Interior line is very important, and the 49ers had some issues between Brendel, Burford, and McKivitz. And I know McKivitz is not an interior lineman, but between Brendel and Burford, the 49ers did have some issues on the inside. With Brendel, he's one of the more athletic centers that we've seen in quite some time in the NFL. But boy, at times did he struggle with power moves inside last year? Did he struggle at times with, blocking for and short situations, those situations where you just need a little bit of yardage? I think Jake Brendel wasn't the best in those situations last year, and that's why the 49ers, they drafted a couple, they signed a couple centers, the undrafted centers, Drake Nugent and Bryson Mays. B, they're still working on Nick Zakel. We'll see if he makes the football team. C, they drafted a guy who played center at the Senior Bowl, and Dominic Purdy. Brendel's still under contract for 3 more years, but the 49ers are definitely in a spot where if they can't upgrade the center position, they absolutely will. Remember, Brendel was an undrafted free agent. Then he went to Miami, and then he came to the 49ers. But so much is riding on the improvement of this 49ers offensive line. And I think that as far as managing their resources, acknowledging the fact that they didn't pick until the premier tackles were gone, so they didn't really have a place to go where they felt comfortable with a player that could immediately improve their team. I think that their strategy of going toward the interior offensive linemen makes a whole lot of sense from a supply and demand standpoint, and I will see how it works out for them on the field in 2024. I'm going to open this up for a few questions. Again, congratulations to the Czech Republic. They are winners of the World Ice Hockey Championship. So my other country gets the job done. And I open this show by asking, are the 49ers next? Those of you watching in Prague, you probably aren't watching in Prague. You're probably drinking some beer. You're probably having a really good time. It is closing in on Monday there. I think it already is Monday. I think it's past midnight in Prague. I think it's 12:29 a.m. And I'm sure there will not be much productivity in work in the Czech capital city tomorrow. All right, 49ers Q&A. We're ready to go. Let's answer your questions. William Roberts likes Nugent. Nugent's an all Big Ten player coming from a 15-0 team. You can't say that enough. The 15-0 Michigan Wolverines started Drake Nugent at center. Jim Harbaugh was comfortable with him, and obviously he was good enough to help guide that team to a national championship. So he's a 49er now. They were able to get him an undrafted free agency. He's definitely shorter in stature, but I think that he might have, that could be a benefit too sometimes. A lot of people will say, hey, this guy's shorter. He doesn't have the long arms. This is a problem. We'd rather have the 6'4" guy with the long arms to keep defensive tackles at bay. But sometimes the longer, more athletic guy, and that in this case, that's Jake Brendel, is going to have a little bit tougher time arguing against some of the real fire hydrants inside, against some of those defensive tackles who pack a whole lot of torque inside. So sometimes I think a lower center of gravity can help you out. I would not discount Drake Nugent. We know that he can play the game based on the fact that he was all Big Ten center for the Michigan Wolverines. Well, this is an ignorant comment. Nothing great on the O-line. Trent is washed up. So if Trent Williams is washed up, why did he grade as the very best offensive lineman in football? Why has he graded as the very best offensive lineman in football over the past 3 years? And then you say the 49ers need to put up points. The 49ers actually led the league in offense last year. This is the number one offense in football. Why don't you live in reality, man? The number one offense in football has the number one graded tackle in football. And you're saying that they didn't put up points, even though they were the number one offense in football. And then you say that the number one tackle in football by every objective metric is washed up. Purdy got hurt. Purdy didn't get hurt with the offensive line blocking. That was Hassan Reddick working against Tyler Kroft. And Purdy will be the first to tell you it was his fault on that play. Purdy obviously didn't get rid of the ball in time. Brandon Ayuk was open. Purdy has fixed a lot of the issues on that play. He now steps up in the pocket much more effectively. He's got a better field. Lance's injury had nothing to do with offensive line. Lance was running. If there's anybody that can be a little bit upset with the offensive line as far as his injury history goes, it's Jimmy Garoppolo. But you don't want to say that because you'll probably have a bad take about Jimmy Garoppolo as well. But these takes about the 49ers offensive line, they're really off base. I was the first to say, ahead of all these other content creators, years ahead, I was talking about the need for the 49ers to improve their pass protection. And I documented the actual investment into the pass protection, especially in 2021. And I've continued to document the need and the balance that the 49ers must play. The difference between me and basically everybody else on the internet is that I'm actually realistic about what might happen. I don't just create drama for the hell of it. And with realism, I bring actual strategy to the table that is feasible for the 49ers to execute. The basis of talking about strategy, though, has to be truth. You can't just go out there and say that Trent Williams is washed up when he's the top graded tackle in all of football. You can't just go out there and say that the 49ers need to put up points when they're literally coming off the season as the number one offense in football by a mile. So let's live in reality, and then let's have an adult grown-up discussion about the 49ers offensive line. As Being Butterfly says, at one point during the year, the 49ers were beating teams by, yes, they're winning like by an average of 3 touchdowns through some of their winning streaks. So it just doesn't help. Like, we're not being productive when we're talking about what the 49ers need to improve on the offensive line. If we go out there and say that they don't have good players there, Trent Williams isn't good anymore, and they're not scoring points, because none of that stuff is true, right? Save the lies, save the made-up reports for other channels. We're going to talk about the truth here for the 49ers. It's going to make some people upset, but it's okay because we have more subscribers coming in than any of them. All right, let's go. More questions. I'm ready. Let's go. There really is no time limit to get Ayuk's deal done. If he decides to hold out, then it's not like there's an expiration date. They could get it done in week 3, and if he decides to hold out, he would show up in week 4. I think that you put a level of importance on getting it done. So A, there are no hard feelings, but B, you actually get Brandon Ayuk in the building if there is a holdout situation here. But the longest this could realistically go on is until next year. Like, Brandon Ayuk is under contract with the 49ers right now. He needs to move toward what the 49ers are offering just as much as the 49ers need to move to what he's demanding for this to be resolved, right? Like, there has to be some sort of, any negotiation, there has to be some sort of compromise. So this could realistically go on forever because the 49ers have the leverage of having Brandon Ayuk under contract. If he doesn't sign a deal that the 49ers are offering, if it's too low for him and he says, no, I'm not coming in, he will then lose the money that he's scheduled to make in 2024. So it's a stare down. One side has to blink first. Brandon Ayuk probably has a little bit more riding on this, given the fact that the 49ers have a lot of other good playmakers, and he stands to not make any money in this 2024 season. But you don't just go out here and say that there's a deadline for this deal. I mean, in a perfect world, both the team and Ayuk will like to have something amenable done for both sides before the start of training camp. But it's not this limit. There is no formal limit. He's already under contract for 2024. Being Butterfly thinks the Ayuk deal's figured out and a done deal. It simply needs to be inked. I mean, it's possible. I think that the Nick Bosa deal was something that it took a long time, but I think that I sense that the 49ers would have to make him the highest paid defender of all time, the highest paid non-quarterback. I knew it was going to take something that surpassed the Aaron Donald number, and he came in at $34 million, and a lot of guaranteed money last year, and it finally got done in September. All the parameters that the Bosa deal hit, I think that we all knew they were going to hit those earlier on. I don't know what the exact holdup was. The 49ers might have only wanted to go to 32 million instead of 34. And then finally they threw in the towel and they said, okay, here you go. I think Bosa, if you look at that contract, it's hard to say that he lost, or Brian Aralt, his agent, lost that contract negotiation. Bosa, though, I mean, he was even more indispensable to the 49ers team than somebody like Brandon Ayuk. He had a lot of leverage. The 49ers weren't making it to the Super Bowl last year without Bosa playing on that defense. And you can argue that Brandon Ayuk is really, really important too. He absolutely is, but Bosa is a true centerpiece of one side of the football. Other side of the ball, Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, both of those guys, even George Kittle, you might argue, has a little bit more value as far as the structure of what the 49ers are doing than Brandon Ayuk. Hey, he's an A-lister. I think he deserves to be paid. I think he will be paid. Is it a done deal? It might be, but I don't think that it is. I think that it's on, as I've said throughout the entire process, this is on track to be done. Ayuk, I think, has been a willing participant in negotiations, or his representation has been. He's extremely efficient. He is an example of everything that the 49ers want to pay. They're going to get there in due time. Deadline pressure leads stuff to become a done deal. As long as you're on the right track, everything will be fine. And making it more dramatic than it has to be is totally unnecessary. Go for Broke predicts that the 6 wide receivers on the 49ers 53-man roster will be Ayuk, Debo, Jennings, Pearsall, Bell, and Jacob Cowing. So you think that Ronnie Bell, okay. And you think Trent Taylor and Chris Conley might be practice squad guys. I think that's not a bad way to look at this. I think that actually is really, really possible. All right, let's go with these questions. I see a lot of these types of comments, and I really don't understand them. I'm trying to find where it was. It disappeared right here. These kind of comments. BA is really good for that kind of money. No. First of all, what kind of money? Because I've seen a lot of people make videos about this too. They're like, Brandon Ayuk has got this newer, higher contract demand. It's like, no, he doesn't. Nobody has been sitting in on these negotiations. He hasn't publicly demanded anything. Nobody knows exactly how much money he's asking. And if it's based on the Jeremy Fowler report of Amon-Ra St. Brown money, if Ayuk wants a carbon copy of Amon-Ra St. Brown's contract, the 49ers would be doing cartwheels and they would happily pay it. Because Amon-Ra St. Brown signed for only $34 million fully guaranteed, which ranks like number 11 or 12 of all receivers. The 49ers are more than happy, would be more than happy, I should say, to pay Brandon Ayuk top 12, 10 to 12 receiver money. The question becomes, are they willing to go into the top 3, the top 2? And I think they are. I think they're willing to go into the top 5. Let's put it that way. Amon-Ra St. Brown's deal is not going to be as big as Brandon Ayuk's deal. I don't understand why people think that Amon-Ra St. Brown's deal is some kind of unattainable number that's way higher than what Brandon Ayuk's going to get, because it's only at $34 million. People look at the average per year, freak out. They don't understand what they're talking about because it's overly simplistic. I mean, that's not the first time that's happened. Something overly simplistic, fooling people on the internet. They don't understand that that's full of fluff. The real nuts and bolts that agents are talking about, that players are going to want, unless the player's in a vanity contest for his contract to look good. But the real nuts and bolts are going to come through the fully guaranteed money. And when people say that kind of money, it's like, what kind of money are you talking about? There's been no formal public demand for a certain amount of money. So I'm assuming that you're talking about the Amon-Ra St. Brown contract, and you're drawing an Ayuk parallel to it, and you're seeing $30 million APY on Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you're running away scared, and you're saying, no, they can't pay him that type of money. But that is completely ignorant of how these contract negotiations work. It's not about the APY. It's about the fully guaranteed money. And again, Amon-Ra St. Brown may rank top 2 in APY, but he ranks number 12 in fully guaranteed money. And the 49ers would be more than happy to give away a number 12 ranked contract to Brandon Ayuk. I think that he wants more than Amon-Ra St. Brown guaranteed money. I think it might take around $50 million in fully guaranteed money for Brandon Ayuk to be happy and to sign on the dotted line, especially at this point in time before deadline pressure hits near training camp and the start of the regular season. So, I mean, the guy is one of the most he was the most efficient receiver in football last year. I don't want to say one of the most. He was the most efficient receiver in football last year. He's a tremendous asset against both man and zone coverage. He's tremendously versatile. You reward culture too. If somebody has performed and developed the way that you've drawn up for players to perform and develop within the context of your system, those are the kind of guys that you want to pay, because you want to perpetuate that kind of development moving forward. You want to set a good example. All the signs are there to point to Brandon Ayuk getting a deal with a good, healthy chunk of fully guaranteed money. And all the signs are there suggesting the 49ers will come through, just like they did with all the other A-listers that they've had on this football team. Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown is not getting $28 to $30 million a year. I could explain this. If it helps, we can look at Amon-Ra St. Brown's contract. Why don't we do this? Here it is. Amon-Ra St. Brown over the cap. Open this up for you. All right. So here you go. He's got base salaries and signing bonuses that add up into the total cap hit each season. The Lions also have eject buttons. So if Amon-Ra St. Brown performs at top caliber receiving level, they can hold on to him. If he doesn't, they don't have to hold on to him. The option bonus, which would kick in for the 2025 seasons and beyond, is due on March 25th or 23rd of 2025. So about 10 months from today. So I think that for Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously you're going to have him at this year's number, which is still low. Then you're going to have him at a fairly low 2025 number. Then you get to decide what's going to happen 2025 and beyond. 2026, the 2027 salary becomes partially guaranteed on March 15th. In 2027, the next year's salary becomes partially guaranteed on March 15th, and so on and so forth. You've got these triggers, and then you have an option bonus that is not due until 2028. That's a fairly large option bonus that's not due until 2028. That is, let's see here, $5 million or $20 million. A $20 million option bonus is not due until 2028, which is completely optional. Again, option bonus is completely optional. So if Amon-Ra St. Brown is an all-pro and the Lions want to pay him that option bonus in 2028, they'll do so. But if they don't want to, they're just going to back off from the deal in 2028. So that's already $20 million in team controlled funny money. That already lowers the value of this deal significantly. You say it's worth 30 million a year. There's a team option 4 years from now. Like, it's solely in the hands of the team, worth $20 million. So all of a sudden, if you chop off $20 million from the $120 million contract value, all of a sudden this is a 4-year, $100 million extension instead of a 4-year, $120 million extension. Right away, without that option bonus, this goes down from a $30 million a year contract to a $25 million a year contract. Look how easy that was for the Lions to give Amon-Ra St. Brown a good vanity number of $30 million per year. All they did was tack on its option bonus that they don't have to pay in 2028, unless it's completely worth it. So that's why looking at APY of these deals is just not smart. It's not productive. Amon-Ra St. Brown's not even at 28, much less 30 million a year. For all intents and purposes, I would say this deal begins at the very highest. It will be 25 million a year. Probably a little bit lower though, because there's other stuff in the deal that's not guaranteed right now that he won't necessarily attain. I don't know what the rest of Bay Area media is doing. I don't really follow what's going on right now. It seems like a whole lot of drama. There's a question about Christian McCaffrey. He's getting married this offseason. I think he's underpaid. I've said that. That's mainly because of the running back market being a bad situation for running backs. The positional divisions in the NFL do not reflect what the positions actually do. Christian McCaffrey is doing a whole lot of receiving, and he's a threat in the pass game. He's not just a runner, but there's absolutely nothing to firmly link Christian McCaffrey not being at the first week of OTAs with some kind of contract dispute. On top of that, even if he wasn't at OTAs and he wasn't in the first week, if he doesn't show up this week, they're voluntary. So people taking absences from voluntary workouts and filling in blanks that just shouldn't be filled in at this point because it's a waste of mental energy. Okay, great. Maybe they'll get 52 viewers instead of 48 viewers on their live stream. Maybe 4 more people will click on it, but it doesn't change the reality of the situation with Christian McCaffrey. And that's one where, yeah, he deserves a little bit more money because that's how much he means to the 49ers. The 49ers might be thinking about giving him a little bit more money, but until we actually know what the deal with McCaffrey's mindset is about this whole situation, we shouldn't speculate about it. It doesn't help anybody to speculate about it. And what I can tell you, based in facts, is that he's getting married this offseason. So he's probably a little bit busy getting ready for that as well. But I honestly haven't been online. It's Memorial Day weekend. And when you talk about, this is the last thing I talked about a couple days ago. Max Crosby got a $6 million raise added to his contract, no extension. The 49ers could do something like this for Christian McCaffrey. They absolutely could do something like this. I don't know where all the chatter is coming from. I literally haven't been on Twitter. I think it's a waste of time at this point of the year because I like dealing in hard facts. I like seeing what these players are thinking. I like seeing what their representation wants. I like to see the 49ers make a chess move in response. I mean, it's all simple stuff, and endless speculation in May just does nobody good. All right, I'm ready for more questions. Brendel is not arthritis. I think Kyle Shanahan misspoke on that one. Brendel is knee tendonitis, not arthritis. Brendel's probably $4 or $5 million cap hit. I don't have it in front of me. It's not a huge cap hit, but he's under contract for 3 more seasons. I do think the 49ers would not be averse to a center upgrade, but it might not happen immediately, but they obviously are bringing in rookies into that center position. All right. Anyway, everybody, congratulations to the Czech Republic. They are the world ice hockey champions. It's my other country of citizenship. And my other question is, are the 49ers next? We shall see. Thanks for watching. Hope everybody's having a fun Memorial Day weekend.